Hello and welcome to Rewind Reviews. This week we are taking a look at Austin Powers 2, aka Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. If you're interested in sort of our history with this franchise, I would recommend you switch to our discussion on the first film. And I think particularly, I maybe more than ever before, Chris, and I'll see if you agree with me on this. This conversation is going to be referencing our first conversation an awful lot, I think, because a lot of the same problems persist here. So I think this is going to be this. You might be able to actually just what we could do is we could say a few choice phrases here, and I could cut them out and just paste them over our review of the first one. No, there are some big differences.
This podcast will essentially be the Hangover Part 2, where it just feels like
yeah. Well,
there are some differences. I would say this. I don't feel the same way about the two movies for sure. I'm torn actually, but I can explain why I'm torn anyway.
Well, yeah. So just a quick, I guess, a little addendum to history before we do the overall thoughts. Because I forgot to mention this last week. I talked about how I became aware of Austin Powers through the sequel coming out, as did you, is my understanding. But I forgot to mention one element of that. It wasn't just that it appeared on Irish children's television inexplicably, but also Madonna had a song in the charts that I really liked, and the video for which was on TV quite a lot and involved Austin Powers. Beautiful Stranger, which is genuinely one of my favourite Madonna songs. And I think that makes me, a very bad Madonna fan. If I met an actual, full-on Madonna fan, they would be, I think, appalled that it's one of my favourites. But I love that song. I think it's great. I think it's really good. I think it manages to be a fun pop song, a James Bond-ish song, but also, not so James Bondy that it's out of place in Austin Powers. It's a really careful line that song walks. But anyway, that was all over the TV. So I also became aware of Austin Powers through the Beautiful Stranger music video, which he's in quite a bit, doing silly dancing. So yes, that was a big part of my becoming aware of the character that I failed to mention last week. I omitted by mistake. So yeah, there you go. That's just some history. We'll talk, I guess, a little bit more about that song later. But overall thoughts. Do you want to start or should I? I don't know, Chris. How are you feeling? I feel like I could sum it up, but I feel like I just talked a fair bit. So
give us. That's all right. I went first, and my thoughts are tied to specifics, I think. And I went first yesterday, last time. So go for it, Dan. Phil, you're in the flow. Although because I've got the answer to my question. So let me just look. So Madonna is actually playing, because obviously comparison-wise, Die Another Day is a comparison, an interesting one because it's an actual Bond film. And Die Another Day, tuned into the Christmas episode of Nothing But Static is called, what was it called? Hercules Poirot in Die Another Day. So that says that we talked about Die Another Day quite a bit recently on a recording.
That's a good song too, by the way. Though. I actually quite like that.
It is
song
a good song.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Well, when you were describing your feelings for Beautiful Stranger, I was going to be like, I think I sort of feel that way about Die Another Day.
Sure.
Die Another Day.
Yeah.
Anyway, so according to Setlist FM, she's played Die Another Day 137 times, and she's played Beautiful Stranger 50 times. So I would have thought they would have been closer than that. But there we go.
Clearly, Beautiful Stranger not quite a favourite of hers. Then I guess. I assume she picked.
No, last played in 2016.
That'd be a shot. See, if I saw a Madonna concert, I'd be looking. That's one of my favourite. I would be hoping for that, but I'd be disappointed by the sound of it, unless I catch her on a weird, rare night. She decided to do something different to entertain herself. Because I know that's becoming quite common now. I feel like where artists are doing a sort of a slot in the show to do a different song every night, so that each show is a bit different. I know that's been made quite famous because Taylor Swift did it with Eras, but I think that was happening in general, from what I could tell, is that certain artists were leaving a little slot open to do, something different every night, so that the show wasn't always exactly the same. Anyway.
Yeah.
And even if she did that, I doubt she'd be choosing Beautiful Stranger. Okay, but some of my thoughts upon the film.
Not according to the stats, no.
No. I think this film is probably is superior to the first one because the thing that it's trying to do, it does a bit better than the first one. So we talked about this when we described the last movie, which is like I have to judge the film on the merits, on its own merits, on what its own goals. What is it trying to achieve? Does it achieve that? And if I'm doing that, the first one's a really good film, and this one's even better. Because if I say the joke hit rate is sort of 60 to 65% in the last movie, I reckon it's like 75% in this one. I reckon a higher percentage of the jokes are hits in Spy Who Shagged Me. And I think it's also a little bit smarter about its movie parodying in this film. So So on that front, it's doing a better job. Then on the other end of it, the plot element of it, the last movie's plot was non-existent. This movie at least has an actual goal for Austin that isn't just stop the bad guy. He's had something taken from him that he is trying to get back. So I'm automatically more invested in the story. It's not a lot more, but it is a little more. So two of the key things we discussed from the last movie, I think this movie does better than it. But I do have two really specific gripes with this movie. Two things it does in the storytelling that I absolutely... One I really hated. One is a massive wasted potential. The wasted potential one is going to feel like a discussion we had from the previous episode, where there's something they could have done that they didn't do enough of for the character. And the other one is just an absolutely infuriating choice for a character because it feels antithetical to what they did with the character in the previous movie, in my opinion. So that's kind of my overall summary. Is I do think this is the better movie, but I do have some specific things I want to pick the movie up for. I think it's funnier than the last one, and I think the story works better than the last one. And I think there's a reason this is the one that is mostly... I think a lot of the most iconic stuff is from this movie, and I think this one is thought of more fondly maybe than the first one. And I think there's a reasonably good... I think that's justified. I do think it's superior to the first, and I'm pleased to say that, and I'm glad that the quality has gone up and not the other way, because that would be a very unfortunate thing for it to have gone down for because we didn't love the first one. We recommended it, but we didn't we didn't come out of that review going that's great. You should all see it. So yeah. I'm going to recommend this one as well. No surprise, since I liked it more than the previous one, and I recommended the previous one. I've been pleasantly surprised with the franchise. It's doing what it wants to do well. I do think there's some missed opportunities, some missed potential, and some gripes, but we'll get to those when we get to more specifics. Does that sum up where you're at? Do you somewhere different? How are you feeling about it, Chris?
Sort of. I think it is, and I have a caveat of nostalgia is an issue here, in that I have more memories of this film and more nostalgia for this film than the first. But I think it is a better film. I think it's mad. I saw a Reddit thread that was ranking the Austin Powers, and someone was talking about how the first one is the best because it has the cleanest character arc. And I'm like, what are you, there's a clear character arc here, whether executed badly or not, is up for debate. But there's a clear... I would say there's more of a... we know Austin's got more purpose in this film than he does in the first film. What's the character arc for the first one? I would... Exactly, that was a big complaint.
I want a message to that person and be like, please explain to me what his character arc in the first movie is. Because I somehow missed that.
Yeah. So I really liked it for that reason.
Sure.
I do think it's probably funnier. I do think it feels like there's less... The first one felt like it was chucking more at the wall than this one is. And it just felt a bit... It felt like it had more room to breathe and was kind of funnier as a result, because, it was almost like there was less thrown at the wall but a higher percentage hit. Which was nice.
Just sorry to interrupt, but do you think that's probably just them having done the first movie, looking at what they did and didn't do? There was a lot of throwing at the wall. Now they go, well, we know what sticks because we just did that movie. So that's how they ratcheted up the percentage, was just simply learning what did and didn't work from the first film's experiments, so to speak, which that therefore increased the percentage of success.
Yeah, maybe. And they also, I think they also don't fall into the, especially spoof comedies, but comedies in general, that sequel trope of just repeating the same gags. Like, there is some of that, but like, for example, I really like that the opening montage is the things are in the way of the penis gag, because it just feels like we're just getting out of the way, we're making it a fun title sequence, which is kind of spoofing the over serious James Bond title sequences, like, so I'm here for the way they did a lot of that stuff. There's obviously also a lot of fresh elements. The reason I struggle is because I have one, and it sounds like maybe they're different complaints. I also have one major complaint that just, I was like, I think that's worse than anything in the first movie. But I would prefer to watch this one again. Yeah. And it's funny because Jess watched half of this one with me, and she was just knackered and stuff, so she went to bed. But she was like, her only review was, this is just a collection of scenes, and I actually think that's way worse in the first film as well, which I give this film credit for. This film felt less like just a collection of scenes.
I think we talked about that. I think because sometimes the reason a film feels like that is that old South Park thing, isn't it? Of like, is your plot going, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens? Or is your plot going, this happens, therefore this happens, which means this happens? Which is basically a simple way of laying out the idea that, like, each scene should be the reason the next scene happens. Like, because a character made a choice in scene A, we now have a situation in scene B that's leading into our situation in scene C. You know what I mean? And they're all interconnected, and they're all pushing each other forward. Even if you're doing A plot, B plot, as you're going between those two, they should be thrusting each other forward and ideally coming together. And because the movie doesn't do that, it really is just like, there's very little, like, the thing they did in scene A is why they're doing the thing in scene B, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I feel like okay. Let's dive into your complaints, because I feel like mine. It would be more logical to talk about mine after. Okay. So what are your? It might be the same, but just one of your phrases makes me think maybe it isn't.
Well, I've got two. Do I start with the character-based one or the just wasted potential one? Oh, the wasted potential one is kind of a character-based one as well. Okay, so one of them is kind of like a choice that hurts the character's behavior from the previous one. The other one is just an opportunity that was missed to do more with the character here, which is a similar complaint to the first one. Should I start with that one? That one probably makes the most sense, right?
Yeah, start with that one, yeah. Okay.
So I think the whole stolen mojo thing is a deeply wasted concept in this movie. It's set up as Austin Powers without his animal magnetism or charisma, or Riz, as the kids are calling it these days. You could make a funny joke about that in a Austin Powers 4, Chris, where Seth Green's character, who is inexplicably still behaving like a teenager from the 90s, even though he's in his 40s or whatever, is using words like Riz. Anyway, face it, Dad, Austin's just got Riz. God. Anyway,
this is me learning about Riz, so I have nothing to add to this.
Mr. Myers, if you'd like to put the check in the post, I'm happy to reach out via email, and I'll give you my Korean address. Look, so I think what happens though is they set it up as this like Austin Powers minus his charisma, minus his animal magnetism. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting setup. Because everyone loves him, and it makes things easy for him. And he has a really, he walks into a room and he's the life of the party. Even in the last one, with the exception of that one scene where he, gave those girls the peace sign and they sort of rolled their eyes, it pretty much seemed like everyone loved him everywhere he went. And that's fine. He's a likable character. We talked about this. I'm okay with that. But if we're saying that he's had his mojo stolen or whatever, could we not explore what that means beyond what it essentially amounts to in this movie, which is that he can't get it up? That's how it manifests in the movie, ultimately. That's the only way in which it impacts Austin's day-to-day life. And because it's the motivation for his journey to fight on, the motivation beyond just stop Dr. Evil, and it did need that. So I'm not complaining about it. I think the stolen mojo thing is a perfectly valid plot for a movie of this sort. I mean, it's silly, but it's a silly movie. So I'm sitting there going like, oh, well, can we do like, oh, Austin goes into a party and he's dancing and everyone just kind of thinks he's lame, or like he tries to talk to a girl and chat her up and she doesn't want anything to do with him and he can't handle that. Like, why aren't we doing that? Like, he has to win over Heather Graham's character by being a decent human being instead of being sort of like, just immediately attractive to her. He has to just win her over with his own personality, and that's when he can learn the quote unquote story of the movie, which is the mojo was inside you all along, which is the premise, which is the ending of the movie. I just feel like we didn't do anything with it, and it, like the last movie, we had some thoughts on the spy out of time, and that they had that idea but then didn't really do anything with it. And I felt the same thing was true here. Yet another good idea, not really done anything with. And that is mildly frustrating when you watch the movie. So that's gripe number one. Do you have any thoughts on that? Did you have similar thoughts when you were watching it, Chris?
Oh, completely. Because the first scene that happens... Oh no, because I suppose because he does that. Yeah, basically, very shortly after, I'm trying to remember the timeline. Very shortly after, what got me is he loses his mojo. He realizes he's lost his mojo, and then he goes to a fucking club, and everyone's like, "Oh, his house, which is a club party, whatever it is, whatever that room is." And everyone's, "Oh, Austin, hi, Austin." And I'm like, I thought he's meant to have lost his mojo. Like, and how much more effective, like. Because you could go even further than what you're describing. He could be fumbling. He could be struggling at spy stuff. He could be,
Sure.
he could
great
he
idea.
could be like useless. But Heather Graham's character still, I can't remember her name, still falls in love with him anyway. And that, she brings his mojo back. Like you could just ramp all of that up.
Sorry,
more.
we shouldn't have forgotten it. Felicity Shagwell.
That's it.
Which is an objectively brilliant name for a sort of parody Bond girl. Like, that is just brilliantly done.
Because he's still as smooth and suave as he was before. He still has the ladies fawning over him. Literally, the only difference is there's 2 bedroom scenes where he says he can't get it up. I didn't understand. I'll be honest, I didn't understand it. Like, when he loses his mojo, but then goes to, like I say, that club party environment, and is still all fine, and everyone's literally like, "Oh, Austin." I'm like, what? I thought he lost his mojo.
Yeah,
what's happening
That's
here?
exactly how I felt. And it wasn't just like, oh, that's a slight annoying plot hole because he should be like, shitter at talking to people or whatever. Now, however you want it to manifest, just manifest in some way. But like, also just from a again, wasted potential perspective, it's like, if we're looking to motivate him, I want my mojo back. Well, then we make him not having his mojo a really bad thing for his life. He goes back to a party at his own house and is not popular at it. Is a great way to establish the damage Dr. Evil has done and raise the stakes of the movie. And that doesn't feel like it would have been very complicated to add. Like, adding that doesn't change the structure of the movie. You could just add a few lines or a tiny set piece where he sort of fumbles through something and then move the movie on the same exact way as it is now. Like, again, it's like we said last week, it's so close to being the thing that it could be. So it just feels like, take that extra step. And that actually is almost more frustrating than a movie that just like is miles off and you go, well, you were never even in the ballpark. They had the good idea. They had a movie that structure allowed them to explore that idea. The end point is still roughly the same. You don't have to change much. You just have to actually address it in the movie, in the things that happen in the movie. And it's, so it's, that was a frustrating one. Shall I do my second, or do you want to do yours and we sandwich them?
No. Well, I just double check because I keep forgetting that the girl, the Dr. Evil's spy who he met through the photography thing, I keep forgetting that's in present day, and so I've just double checked. He literally goes back in time, and it's the whole "I'm back, baby," and like people are fainting, and I'm like,
yes.
I don't think if I'm in if I'm in the club, or more likely the supermarket, and I see a really attractive man, a man with a lot of animal magnetism, and women around him or men around him, whatever, faint, I'm like, I'm not looking at that situation because he's so attractive. People are just falling over and fainting or fawning over him and being like, oh, what are you getting? Frozen peas? I'm not looking at that man going, he's got no mojo. Like, no. You know what I mean?
That's a man. That's a man that's got lots of riz. Here's the thing.
He's got mojo and whatever you're saying. Like, you know.
Chris is really down with the kids. I think you've done yourself dirty there, Chris. You could be at the party. Look, every party needs a weird, socially awkward person that's been dragged there in the corner looking at their phone. So you're welcome at the party.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to go to like a Christmas party thing on Monday, and that's just, you know, riddled with me with anxiety for it. So thank you for that. But
Merry Christmas. A present from me to you. Look, no, Chris, we both know you're going to kick that door down and go, yeah, baby, and start saying things like shagadelic, and everyone's going to be looking at you like you're insane.
I tell you, you and I discussed this, and I think we discussed it off mic. The problem with an occasion now for me, like this Christmas party thing. Mm-hmm. Well, I know people, like, but it's not like it's, you know, they're not. You know, they're not old childhood friends or anything.
Sure.
But I know them, I like them. But the problem is, I'm just at a point where I would just rather say shit for my own amusement. That's my concern. Like, my concern is that I'll be inherently weird and not give a fuck. Anyway. Yes. Let's do yours. It will make sense why I'm keeping mine back when I get to it, but let's do yours.
Okay, so, well, I say quickly. I'll sum this up as best I can. I really don't like the way they handle the Austin Felicity fat bastard plotline at all. I think it harms his character massively. In the previous movie, he slept with that random woman and then was like, yeah, shagged her. Who cares? You know, free love. We're all, you know, if we're not in a relationship, then, you know, we're not exclusive. Of course I did. You know, he has a very like loose view of that, which is, you know, that's part of his character. It's baked into his character. And while some could argue that he became more monogamous as a result of his relationship with Vanessa, and we've got to get to Vanessa too, obviously, that's a whole thing. But I think because him and Felicity are clearly not a thing, they've not, you know, they're not dating or anything. Of course she's free to go out and sleep with someone else. And his weird almost jealousy, and I know part of it, I know the movie wants you to know that part of it is just that he's grossed out by Fat Bastard and he's like, really, him? But a part of it is jealousy too. I don't think the movie's very good at making it look like anything else. And I think I've just got this issue with this, like, and look, trust me, this is a real thing that legitimate men have as an attitude, which is that it is okay for men to sleep around and it is not okay for women to do it. There was a really shitty, what was it? It was like The Lying Box or something. It was a show on ITV this year, Chris, you might remember. It was like sort of Love Island, but they'd go into a box and they'd be asked questions, and if they lied, they'd be found, they had a lie detecting AI or something.
I don't,
I can't remember what it was.
I can see if I think I know what you mean. Hold on, I'll look it up.
Yeah, but my point is, in that they had a guy in it that, you know, when he was asked a question about whether he's cheated, and like whether how many
do you mean Channel 4's The Honesty Box?
Honesty Box. Oh, it was Channel 4. Sorry, I thought it was ITV. Okay, yeah, that's it. Honesty Box. Perfect.
Did you watch that?
I saw like 2 episodes.
Or was you just
clips? There was a gathering, and no one knew what to put on that could be like everyone would be able to at least take it in like equal, you know what I mean? Like we couldn't put on a drama or anything. So in the end, it was just let's just stick some reality TV on. There's a new show. It only had 2 episodes like aired at the time, I think. So we watched the first 2 episodes as a group, and then I don't think anyone of that group went back to it. But there was a guy in it, and we found out through this Honesty Box premise, where they like caught him out in his lies, that he has slept with a very large number of women and has cheated on many of the women he's been in his life. But his double standard was he would expect a much smaller number from a potential partner. because it was okay for him to sleep around and it was not okay for the woman to sleep around. And this guy, I've never known a bigger red flag in my life on a human being.
Wow.
It's just so
God.
obvious. But and this isn't that. I understand that, but I felt the same about it. It just felt like they gave Austin a weird double standard that I didn't like, because there is a follow-through implication that he has a different attitude for men than women. Now, the movie never outright says that. The movie just makes it look like he's a bit jealous. But if you apply it to what we understood about his character from the previous movie, it starts to look like hypocrisy. And I feel like one of the things I most liked about the character in the last movie was he was really consistently written. And what I really wanted this movie to do, desperately, was for Felicity to be like, I'm sorry, Austin, I need to tell you something. I slept with Fat Bastard. And Austin to be like, oh, groovy. He's not your best, I don't think, but, you know, good for you. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I wanted. Like, him to not care. I deeply wanted that. And instead, we got weird stuff. And look, Fat Bastard's its own problem in this script. We talk about hits and misses. I think the movie's misses, most of them revolve around gross out humour. So Fat Bastard is the source of most of the things I didn't find funny about this movie. That remaining 20% that I didn't find funny, most of it is Fat Bastard. So I'm already a bit biased against that character. But yeah, I found that really difficult because I thought they really went against what the character had been established as in the previous movie. And it hurt him a lot. I think if you watch this movie in isolation, you might not feel it or notice it because it's a pretty standard plot. When two people are sort of romantically, you know, linked in the movie. They're not gone together yet, but across the adventure, they're starting to be flirtatious. One of them ends up sleeping with someone else or like going on a date with someone else. That creates tension. That's fine, I guess, in isolation. But in this case, it worked very poorly for me. I don't know. How do you feel? I've rambled an awful lot there. What do you think?
No, I agree. I agree completely. I think it contrasts and contradicts the attitude of the last movie. I don't think it's resolved particularly. You know, they just have a chat. She doesn't even, like, in that chat, to my memory, there's not even particularly a discussion of, you know, clarification of, oh, it was the job, and they don't even talk it out properly. They just kind of, she just goes, no, I really like you. And he's like, oh, okay, groovy. Like, what? Okay, well, why have we done this anyway then? Like,
Yes,
if
right.
If we're not going to do anything with it. Like,
I didn't even think about that
so
part
they
of
don't
it.
even...
Yeah, it doesn't. They don't just shit
Yeah,
on the
they
character. They don't even get a good plot line out of it for their effort.
No, they don't.
Yeah, you're
they
right.
Don't do anything with it. Like, so yeah, I completely agree. But I also agree that there are bigger problems and more. I would argue that because it was funny actually, because Jess said to me, she went, "Is it like, are these movies still going to seem okay? Like, is there going to be, you know, a modern lens on these movies?" And I was like, well, actually, we didn't find too much of that in the first one.
I did have one in this
specifically.
But we'll talk about it.
We even specifically said, well, no, I'm sorry. I don't think a movie would come out now with the Fat Bastard storyline or plot at all. So I was just going to say, in terms of I agree with your discomfort on Fat Bastard as a premise. I think
That's interesting, because I wasn't even coming at it from that angle. You're right. You wouldn't do that today. It doesn't work today. I just I must admit, I think I just gave it an automatic pass on the grounds of, like, it's a 90s movie, of course, like that sort of thing.
Of course, yeah. I'm not saying, yeah. Nor am I saying, I'm not raging against it for that reason or anything. But I think that feels more outdated than any. My point is that feels more outdated than anything in the first film, in my opinion.
I know, I agree. And then the other element being just, the jokes surrounding him are very funny, because it's all just bad, gross out humor. It's when he's naked, he's in this horrible fat suit, and he's like greasy, and like he's got all these horrible like moles and blemishes that they've put into the fat suit, it's very graphic. And he's like eating chicken in bed, and it's like slimy everywhere, and it's all gross out humor. Then they do the whole gag where they find a toilet he's recently used, and then there's the whole coffee switch out gag. I don't know, man. Look, I did chuckle when I saw that the sample was next to the coffee. But that was enough for me. I didn't then need for them to then play that out to its, like, someone drinks a coffee with a dash of his feces in it. and then go, God, this coffee tastes like shit. Like that's too much on the nose. So yeah, pretty much nothing about Fat Bastard amused me in this movie. So yeah,
I don't think it's a dash. I think it's the whole cup is his shit. Like
I think he pours I think he pours half a cup of coffee. Then he turns around to keep the conversation. When he turns back to finish pouring it, he then grabs I believe. So it's not it's not a full cup of the contents of the other jar. But yeah, it's still. I mean, it's really gross but needless. Like so, yeah. For me, a lot of the jokes that didn't work in this movie were the gross out stuff, for sure.
Yeah. Do you want to do mine?
I desperately do. Yes, I'm sorry that I talked so much. For listeners who are sick of hearing me talk, I will deliberately put a figurative sock in my mouth for the next period.
No, not at all. Well, the problem with that last one is like it's just like I agree. Like sometimes it's like there's no I don't want to talk and repeat the same sentence.
Well, no, but I will say that what you did add though did actually make me go, oh shit, yeah. I was so like focused on the fact that it didn't work as comedy. I didn't even think about that it didn't work on being appropriate like level. Like we talked about that with the last movie, that it mostly gotten away with it. I did make a note of a moment from this film where something I felt was not ideal in a modern lens, but the rest of the movie I was like, I think it's about the same, right? But you're absolutely right. The Fat Bastard stuff doesn't fly at all in that sense, and I somehow that was a blind spot for me because I was so I was so critical of the comedy. I didn't even stop to go, and also that's deeply inappropriate.
And especially because my memory, I'd need to maybe rewatch the scene. But the end scene of I'm sad. I eat because I'm sad, and I'm sad because I'm eat, or whatever he says. That's played for jokes, which I think is also the thing that like makes it uncomfortable viewing. But I don't know. Maybe I'm a bigger guy. Maybe I'll hold my hands up. Maybe I'm just sensitive to this shit.
No, I know. I think you're spot on. That was a really it was a really great point, and I'm glad you brought it up because it had slipped under my radar, and you're absolutely correct. And I'm really glad you mentioned it because otherwise it would have occurred to me in the days following this podcast and I'd have kicked myself. That's what would have happened.
I had a thing on Wednesday where someone, bearing in mind, so was it Wednesday? No, so it's 2 days ago. We're recording this on a Saturday, and someone was talking about their suitcase, and they said, "Oh, it was as big as a person." And then there was three of us in this conversation, and they went. One went. Person one went. Oh, it was as big as a person. And then person two went. What, like a small person or a big person? And then person one pointed at me and said, "Oh no, like a person." And I was just sat there thinking, "What the fuck just happened?"
Yeah.
What?
Well,
so I will. I will hold my hands up and go, maybe I'm just being sensitive.
I would say you are not being sensitive, but I would say that there is still work to be done on people's attitudes towards that sort of thing.
And I think it's because I've had versions of that which I've found fucking hilarious. I once met an older person who knew my dad and granddad like when they were younger. And I knew this, and I said to them, "Oh, you know, da da da." And she went, "Oh, such lovely men, such lovely men." And I went, "Yeah." And then she went, "You're a fair bit bigger than either of them were, like at your age." And I still laugh about that. I think that's fucking hilarious. So it's not it wasn't particularly a sensitivity thing. It was more of it's amazing what still flies with some subjects and what doesn't fly at all with other subjects. Like it was more of like that sort of thing. But equally, to their credit, I'd sent myself up much earlier in the day, so maybe they suddenly thought that it was all fair game, and hey, maybe there's an argument there. I don't know. But in terms of my complaint about this, so Dan, sometimes when you're a kid and you're playing, and you're maybe you're pretending to be in the Wild West, and in the you're pretending to be in space, or maybe you're pretending to to be going through the jungle trying to find some sort of hidden treasure. Whatever the game is, you'll be playing as a kid, and over the course of the game, there's nuances and there's different things, and then your mum will call upstairs and say that dinner's ready, and suddenly one of you will go, "Oh look, we found a plane, and the plane's gone here, and we've got it. Cool, fine." And then you go and have dinner. And that is the end of this fucking movie. I thought the end of the movie and the conclusion and the way they, quote unquote, resolved the problem, bearing in mind that I had to rewind it because I was like, wait a minute, what? Everything's fine? What? Like, huh? Oh, okay, well, the laser pointed away from Earth, I guess. Like, I thought the ending was fucking rushed nonsense. I didn't like the end at all.
But what do you mean? Are we talking about the entire third act, or do you mean just like the very last moments of resolution?
I mean, there's a second Austin, and I don't even particularly, because the time machine's been embedded from the beginning. I don't even particularly mind that, Austin's gone back in time, and then there's two of them. But like, go back in time. One saves Felicity. It's just a lack of clarity of like, well, why is this situation resolved? Because he kicked her and the laser missed, but I don't understand why then everything's I just wanted just an extra 2 minutes to just explain what was happening a bit more, because I thought it was going to build. I thought then it was still going to go wrong, and then there were going to be like 4 Austins, and then also like. One then goes back in time, and the other two are just like, cool, we're fine. Like, what? I was just very confused. I just think it's quite rushed. I think you could. Doesn't necessarily bother me because it's this type of genre, it's this type of movie, and I had similar issues with the first one, but you could point to it and be like, oh, okay, Austin just zips back in time, and then the scene just plays out a different way again, and then they win. Like, I think someone could have a problem with that. I just thought the ending was a bit clunky. I just didn't like it particularly.
See, I've got mixed feelings on that, because I do see what you're saying. It does all happen very quickly, but most things in this movie happen quite quickly. And from the moment Austin get, I mean, the whole thing takes, I don't know, man. I think it takes like 15 minutes. The sequence. So my memory of it, and I might be misremembering, is Austin enters the main room. Dr. Evil's there, and he's like, there's Felicity Shagwell, there's the laser. It's that classic thing of like, you can only do one. You're going to stop me, you're going to save her. Brilliant play on the that sort of like villain thing that they always do. I mean, end of Spider-Man is probably one of the more iconic ones. There's the end of a Batman movie that does it too, where the villain puts two things that the hero wants to achieve. And this movie decides to solve it by having him fail to save Felicity, go try to kill Dr. Evil. Then when he realizes there's a time machine element, he goes back. So there are two Austins now let me follow it through, because I want to. Sorry, I do need to. I want to track this through properly. So because I understand why there's some confusion. Then there's two Austins. Then he can solve both problems. One Austin stops the laser. One Austin saves Felicity. Then one of the Austins has to then go back in time, or there wouldn't be a second Austin. If both Austins stayed now, then there wouldn't be a second Austin to help. So it creates like a recursive loop. So that's why one of them then goes. And then because they were both there, one was able to stop Dr. Evil, one was able to save Felicity. I don't know. I didn't feel like it was that unclear. Like, I'm thinking it through, and I'm just, yeah.
But so specifically, the two Austins is the point where I just felt a bit rushed. And I've just checked the timings of that.
Yeah,
the first Austin goes back in time at I'm talking specifically from like the two Austins appearing till the resolution.
I've got it on screen in front of me. It says 10 minutes ago. That's the Austin appearing, second Austin appearing, and there's 13 minutes left of the movie.
Yeah, but we're back in England by 24 minutes, so there's only 3 minutes of the two Austins. That's the specific bit I have an issue with, because I was just a bit like, huh, what's happened? Like, the situation's resolved.
No, okay.
It could be very personal. Could be
Yeah,
just
I think
me.
so.
But,
I think I disagree. The reason I disagree is I think because it's the conclusion to the previous 20 minutes of setup. Like we had Austin sneak into the base. We had her kidnapped. We set up the dilemma of Austin failing to save her but stopping the laser. Dr. Evil being thwarted, so he hits the self-destruct and runs. And then Austin realizes that he can get a better outcome, goes back in time. Now there's two of him. A little bit of fun. 3 minutes, run around, do the two things we've already established need to be done. Save the day. Dr. Evil still hits the self-destruct because he's beaten and he'd rather destroy his moon base than let it fall into their hands, I guess. And then he leaves, and then with that, I don't know. I didn't find that.
How's he? I guess my two questions, and maybe like I say, hands up. Maybe I'm nitpicking, especially in a film that has established that they literally have a scene where they tell the audience not to overthink. So
not to overthink, specifically the time travel mechanics. Yes, they do say that. Yes.
Yeah. So and I accept that, and I accept that logic. But one, how's he beaten? And two, why does Dr. Evil give Austin Powers the idea to go back in time?
Because he thinks he can then get away. He's buying time. Austin's got his gun to his head. He's just like, I want to escape. But in terms of like the what was your question before the Dr. Evil thing? Oh, how is he beaten? The question wasn't ever the question wasn't ever about Austin not being able to stop the laser or free Felicity. The question was always he can't do both. So it's not, the movie never establishes some sort of dilemma where Austin, once he reaches the laser, can't just stop it. That his goal is get to the laser to stop it. So like the movie establishes that when he arrives on that island, like with like nearly half an hour of the movie left, before his fight with Mini-Me.
But is there not? Can they not just overwhelm Austin, capture him, and then load up another laser?
No, he breaks it, doesn't he? He like completely stops. Like yeah. So he stops it. But either way, for me, the dilemma was never, how is Austin going to stop this laser once he gets to it? The question was always, does Austin get to the big red button and hit it to save the day? Basically, and the way Dr. Evil tries to thwart him is, well, you've got a dilemma because I'm gassing your bird right now. So you've got choices, mate.
I think all the good you've done for talking about the importance of not judging people by physical appearances has been undone by the sentence "gassing your bird."
Hey, I was putting dialogue in Dr. Evil's mouth, Chris.
I don't think Dr. Evil is a character from Peaky Blinders, is he?
I reckon he said it, but with quote marks.
I don't know if people say bird in Peaky Blinders.
No, they definitely. But anyway, no. My point is that like the established dilemma is simply that he's got two things to do and only one of him, and the solution to the problem isn't. It's not about how does he stop the laser. That's never been an issue. We know once he gets to it, he can stop it. The question is just how does he do both? So then we do the time machine thing to do that, and then the second Austin, or the first one of the two Austins, then goes back in time to be the second. Well, I guess the one that was already in at the time goes back in time to be the second in a loop, if that makes sense. So that there's always a second Austin there, because obviously, if that sequence ends with them going, "Great, we solved it, and now there's two of us," that doesn't really then help with like. Because then any other, like in terms of a time travel mechanic, like what about the next Austin that goes through in time that doesn't have that partner? Like it creates a sort of loop when the other one goes back. Although you're right, we shouldn't really be analysing the time travel of it because the movie very much tells you don't worry about it. It's just for fun.
The time travel element of it never bothered me. Should we do?
Well, because that's fair. I'd be curious as to your thoughts on that. Like, so because for me that was always the dilemma. So I'm with that said, how are you feeling about it? Do you is it still just? Do you think the speed of it? You wish they'd maybe elaborated on it more. Like I'm still curious.
It just seemed a bit rushy. Yeah, but I have no better explanation than the one I've given, and you've countered that. But I think it was just still. It just felt a bit quick to me. I think all of the points you've raised are fair, but I can't. Maybe if I watched it again, I'd be able to judge better whether that had changed my mind.
Do we think in terms of that? Because I mean, the movies, but all three of these movies are within a minute of each other in length. They're all 1:35, 1:34, an hour 34, an hour 35. Two of them are 35. Adding an extra couple of minutes, because it's such a tight movie. Would you then take that time out of somewhere else, or do you just make the movie a bit longer to sort of flesh that out?
Yeah, I think you just I think I even in my opening
you did. You said it only needed 3 minutes.
Give me two. Yeah, just give me 2 more minutes or something. So yeah, I think you could just extend a little bit and cover that for sure.
I don't know. Yeah, I certainly look. I don't disagree that it's kind of fast, but most of the actual plot resolution in this movie and in the previous one is done quite fast because sort of generally speaking, it's more about can we hang jokes on this sequence rather than.
Yeah, I was less specific, but I had the same complaint last movie that it just felt the ending was just a bit rushed. So yeah, maybe I just it's just a bugbear of mine to want that sort of. But also, to be fair, maybe that's just reflected. It might just be another thing they're subtly spoofing and parodying. Maybe that is just the case in spy movies, or certainly the spy movies that they are specifically parodying. I think they have moved on now, but
there's definitely truth. There's definitely truth to that. But we can't always use that as a defense for this movie not having the ideal structure. No, I do think it's a good observation, and you are right to say that it's quick. But for me, the only reason I think it's interesting, and the reason I counter it was that I didn't feel it because I felt like the rest of the movie was also that quick. So I just thought it was interesting that that scene had been more obviously quick to you, that it had become a problem. And I guess what I'm really trying to get at is I wonder what the difference is between the rest of the movie, setting up and doing things quite quickly. I mean, in the previous movie, do you remember how it opens? And they were just all of a sudden, Austin is just in the modern day having been frozen. And they never bothered doing a scene where Austin's like, yeah, cool, I'll go get frozen and go into the future. He just sort of is. like it just sort of happened off screen. The movies have, generally speaking, set a pace. And I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, I take that you felt that way about it. I wonder why. I'm trying to sort of...
Well, maybe potentially because it's the climax, because it's the resolution. And because with so much of the movie left, maybe I thought, well, I wasn't looking at the timer or anything, but I think maybe it's that. Maybe just that clarity and resolution. Or maybe I didn't pay enough attention to the scene before and see, how the system eject and all of that sort of stuff. It just like I say, to me, just felt that specific from the two Austins appearing, just felt very quick. Just felt like we were very suddenly 3 minutes later back in England. Oh, okay, fine. And maybe it's just because it's resolution.
Because I guess we talk about this a lot, the idea of when there's a sequence at the end of a movie that wants to build sort of tension and stakes, and how a movie does that successfully or unsuccessfully, and what the problems with that can be and the pitfalls. And I always talk about are the goals clearly established? Do I understand exactly what the good and bad guys need to be doing in this sequence to be invested in what's then occurring? And I guess this movie's closer to not having quite achieved that one of us felt slightly on one side of it and one of us felt slightly on the other. I don't think either of us are massively passionately either way on the scene, but
no.
But it's clear that it was more of a problem for you than it was for me, and I just think I guess that just sort of indicates that maybe they didn't quite nail it, and there was maybe some structural work to be done.
Yeah, maybe, because just in my mind, the minute you go back in time, the scene almost resets. And I think this scene, the second version of that scene, played a lot on Well, you already know about this because you've just seen it in the first version, which is potentially the right choice for the momentum of the movie and the pacing of the movie. But yeah,
that would be my feeling on it. But I totally see where you're coming from. I think no wrong answers as always.
I think the quick fire positives and then a longer discussion. Like we've already said, I think this movie is funnier. I thought the that looks like a massive, hey, Johnson, pass this over here. Oh my God, could you see that? It looks like a big Richard. Are you doing that whole thing? Mm-hmm. I thought that was funny.
Great.
That made me laugh. Whilst you could argue it is more of a both that and the example I'm about to give. Whilst you could argue they are more juvenile maybe in their sense of humor, I thought the shadows on the tent was also very funny. I enjoyed that too.
I think the shadows on the tent is the best version of that they've done across these two movies, because the whole he's naked and she's sort of eating a sausage and it's positioned in a way, it's like there's no one to see that. Do you know what I mean? There's no one reacting to it. I think the way they set it up in this one, where there's those soldiers outside the tent, and they're all reacting to when she's hitting the tennis racket back in with the mallet. That's really funny. It shouldn't be, but it is very funny. And then it's the dialogue choices. Just hit it a bit harder. I'm sure we can squeeze it in. That sort of stuff. It's great. It's good.
And it also it's very clever because they've written dialogue that works in both the truth and their version, so it works. I thought that I still really like the subtle gag of when they get captured by the villain, he makes them change their outfits. It's been done,
and they don't even reference it this time. I don't think.
Nope. I really liked that. And a bigger for discussion compliment. Is obviously the acting and the writing of the Felicity character and Heather Graham's performance. Yeah. I think what's particularly, actually kind of ahead of its time almost, is the fact that they once again have a Bond girl that isn't a typical Bond girl, but managed to do it in a different way to Vanessa from the first movie. She is obviously more of Austin's equal and is also a spy and all of that sort of stuff. And I just think I thought it was really impressive that once again it was a different take on the quote unquote assistant. She's not really an assistant at all, but the love interest in a spy movie, as it were. But was still able to be fresh and different. And I thought that was they were really well matched. I thought that was a really smart decision for the sequel, to have a character like Felicity, and I thought it really worked. And I think Heather Graham's brilliant in the role and charming, but also has the Elizabeth Hurley thing of knowing exactly what movie she's in, and playing it the right way accordingly. What are your views on Felicity?
Yeah, I would agree. I think she's a perfect sort of she's perfectly positioned in the script perspective, because she's different enough from Vanessa to feel like her own character, but similar enough to fill the same functional role in the story, which is a really hard balance to hit. We've reviewed many TV shows and movies over the years where they've done that. Okay, this is less common in modern day, but when an actor leaves and they replace them with a character that's almost identical, but technically a new character, but they have the same attitudes and approach. It's I've never liked that. It was very popular in the storytelling trope in the 80s and 90s particularly, and maybe the early thousands. But it is dreadful, and there's an easy trap to fall into when you're doing something like this. But in terms of writing and execution of the character, they nailed that balance. And then of course Heather Graham comes in and is on point in terms of she knows what movie she's in. Her comic timing is good. Thumbs up all round. She's great. I've always liked her work, but she's particularly good in this film. So yeah, I'm a fan. I think she might be my preferred of the three. Well, we'll have to see. I'll be curious after, because I'm really fascinated about Beyonce in the next one, because I have no memory of her performance in that movie. I only ever saw that movie once, I think. And I have no memory of how good or bad she is in the movie. And I know, she's not... Actress is not her primary career. So I'll be curious how well she does. And we'll talk about that next week. But of the two, at least, we've seen so far, I do prefer Felicity to Vanessa. both in writing and performance. I think she's just a more
I would agree with that, and chemistry with Austin as well.
Oh, that's an interesting thought. I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, I think you're probably right. I do think he had a good chemistry with. Oh my god! My brain with Vanessa.
Elizabeth Hurley.
Elizabeth Hurley's character. Yeah. But you're right. I think he probably does have more chemistry with Heather Graham. That's probably true.
So speaking of, let's do that next. I'll let you go because I feel like you've got thoughts on it. I will just say my big thought on what they do with Vanessa is fair play to Elizabeth Hurley for coming back to do that.
Well, we should cover the story of how, and it'll make more sense to you.
Oh, okay. I don't know the story.
Yeah, so this was not a choice they wanted to make. The plan was.
Oh, really?
The plan was to bring Vanessa back. That was what they wanted to do when they were in the early production elements of the movie. But unfortunately, Elizabeth Hurley became very busy around that time. She was doing EdTV, I think. And there was another movie she was doing. She was doing 2 movies essentially around the same time, and she just could not be freed up to shoot. And Mike Myers was apparently really bummed about this until he was reminded. Well, the James Bond movies, he has a different. There's a different Bond girl in every one. It actually makes more sense. But he felt strongly about the fact that we'd obviously ended the previous movie, not just with him having, gotten the girl, so to speak, but gotten married to the girl. So he didn't want to sort of betray that logic, but also was happy, understood he kind of had to do the Bond thing of like a new girl, and it did actually make its own amount of sense. So this was the sort of direction they were going to go in, and they weren't sure if they were going to be able to do it by just like some lines of dialogue because Elizabeth Hurley couldn't be in the movie, or whether they could find a way to get her. And she was happy to do it. Look, if she'd have been free, she'd have done the movie. She would have been happy to do the movie. That she said that in interviews, but she couldn't do it. Was otherwise engaged. So they said, is there a time can we get you back at all? And she was free enough to do a couple of days shooting, I think. And that's when they were like, okay, let's write a scene that sort of explains away your existence. And that's when they came up with the whole she's a fembot premise. Now, if you're going to do that, which is objectively a terrible idea, that makes almost no sense, and you could argue does damage to the thing of the first movie, turning it into a big silly joke the way they do is the best possible way to handle it. The tragedy of they killed my wife turned out to be a fembot. You know what that means? I'm single again. Dun, 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 dun. That whole thing, the stuff where Basil Exposition is like, don't worry about it. Doesn't make, like he's like yes, and we've known all along. It just looks like wait what, and they just carry on. The way they handle it is fucking perfect.
The lengths they go to stay, no, because I at first I thought it was going to be open ended, and it was going to be you didn't know whether she was a fembot all along or whether at some point she had been killed and replaced. Mm-hmm. The lengths they go to be like no all along. Like, don't worry about it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's incredible. It is really incredible. And so it's it's one of those situations where, considering they had their hands tied on the matter and there was physically nothing they could do about it, best possible outcome is that they write it as well as they do, in terms of making it like just an absolutely absurd sequence that just leans into its absurdity and understands that it's silly, but it moves us on. I'm fascinated now how they're going to handle. I have no idea how they handle Felicity in the next one.
My memory / assumption is that because my memory is there was a fair bit of time, wasn't there, between the movies?
It's funny you said that because Nadia said that and we looked it up. So the gap between movie 1 and movie 2 was 2 years. The gap between movie 2 and movie 3 was 3. So it was longer, but only a year longer.
It's only 3 years. Mm-hmm. I guess, it sounds really...
I know what you're going to say, because we said the same thing.
we watched it as teenagers, and it just feels like every year feels like longer. Do you know what I mean in your life at that time?
Yeah, when you're younger, a year it just is objectively a longer period of time to you. Yes, I agree.
Well, yeah, especially when you, but also when you view. I'm not working out actually. Well, I could work out actually, but especially the difference between like 12 and 15. Like, for example, that's like a gulf when you're that age. So, yeah, maybe it's that. Wow, and that I feel like I have no memory. They certainly I don't think they do anything as spectacular as what they did here, because I think I remembered this.
Yeah, as did I.
I don't feel. Yeah, because thinking about it, it must have been so weird for me watching the first movie back, knowing, hold on, isn't she a robot? Like for all of this, like weird. I don't think they do. I think they just ignore it. I think they just do that thing where they just pretend that the last girl didn't exist.
That's
like
kind
they
of
were
a
doing
shame,
with the
because
James Bond movies at the time.
Because they did such a good job, sort of handling it without handling it here. That is almost a shame. So yeah, I like it. I think it works. It only could work in this situation, I think. But they do a lot of good jokes with it. They do the whole thing where he's doing the TV remote thing, which is brilliant and absurd and silly, and I love it. And the way it turns into it means I'm single thing, which leads into our title sequence. All of that I think is perfect. So yeah, I'm a fan. Quick side note, just a tiny thing. I don't think this is probably just Mike Myers not wanting to spend as much time in a makeup chair, but I don't think the Dr. Evil makeup is as good in this movie. I think he looks more like Mike Myers in this movie than the last one. So a compliment we gave the last movie was that they did a good job separating the two, so that when they're in a scene together, you're not sort of aware that it's Mike Myers and Mike Myers. And I would say his performance still does a good job handling that. But I think they were. I can't prove this, by the way. I've tried to compare them, and I can't really tell what it is that's different about it. But it feels like they did less with the makeup in this one. I could be wrong. I'm not an expert on that sort of thing, but it was more recognizably Mike Myers' face, in my opinion, in this one than the previous one. So,
yeah, I think that's fair. I think that is. I definitely noticed that as well. He oddly looked more human. Not that he didn't particularly look. Yeah, it just looks. It almost looks like it's a better makeup job, but as such, that's making him look more like Mike Myers.
Yeah, that you know what? Actually, that is a very good point. You might actually have just hit the nail on the head. Maybe it is that it's better makeup and it more fits his actual face structure, but it has this weird adverse effect of sort of making him look more like himself because it's blended in better with his actual features, and therefore he looks more like Mike Myers than he did in the previous one, which creates less of a gulf between Evil and Austin. So yeah, that is a very good point, Chris. Very, very good point. How do we feel about Mini-Me? Mini-Me's an interesting.
God, there is another element you could argue. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't tell if I think they get away with it because of the framing of Mini-Me. Because Mini-Me isn't. He's not like a person with. I don't know the correct terms, like metadwarfism, I think, maybe. He's not a person with that in the movie. I know he's played by an actor from that community. I know Vern Troyer is, obviously that's what they did, but like the character is a science experiment, but then there's a person of that stature in our movie, from that community in our movie, and the joke is that they're a science experiment gone wrong. Well, that has some connotations, doesn't it?
Whether a defense or not, I think he did
amazing.
say he loved playing the part, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he's brilliant, obviously.
He's so good in this movie. My God, is he amazing in this role? And this isn't just the actor's passed away sadly, and we honor him. I thought at the time that his performance in this movie is staggeringly good. His physicality, his facial expressions, it's just remarkable how he makes this character like this weird little baby goblin. Like, he has the characteristics of an angry adult and a child all at once. It's genuinely amazing what he does with this character, and I think a lesser actor in that role makes that almost not work at all. Like, there's a version of this that I just don't think functions. You put a different actor in that role. I think Vern Troyer does an amazing job.
Yeah, I agree, and and particularly the element, and this isn't me just like avoiding the more difficult elements of the topic, you know, in terms of the character and how it plays, you know, now and all of that sort of stuff. But genuinely, my biggest mini-me thing is I wish we got more mini-me and Scott, like that dynamic, and that actually the notion of Dr. Evil having a clone son that he loves way more than Scott, and what that means for Scott, and the dynamic between the three of them. I would have rather a lot more of that. I thought that stuff was always very funny, very interesting. Yeah, I think that would have been really good to see play out more. And that's my big thing with Mini-Me. It's like, it's a shame we didn't get more of that sort of triangle between Scott, Mini-Me, and Dr. Evil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And I think, like, it is the perfect thing to do with Scott. Like, you know, because you sort of, that plot played out in the last movie pretty cleanly. You know, like, they did a good job sort of taking those characters on the sort of very logical arc, and it just feels like, without reconciling them, we've kind of put them in a position where it's like they've got irreconcilable differences. Are we just going to have them bicker again for the whole movie? And it's like, no, actually, we're going to do something much cleverer, which is, now they know that they, you know, do not work as a pair, we're going to have Dr. Evil essentially replace him. And, you know, and watch that dynamic play out as they both almost kind of vie for his affection. It's genius. It's not even vie for his affection. He just cleanly prefers one to the other because he's Dr. Evil and he's not going to do any different. It's genius. It's really great.
One of them he has a fight with on Jerry Springer, and the other one he sings just the two of us to. So I don't think there's any question there.
Yeah. It's brilliant. And I should say the Jerry Springer thing was brilliant as well, by the way. Absolutely inspired. Because Nadia sort of said, does this age the movie? And I was like, I don't think it does. Because, like, those sorts of shows still exist in one form or another. Not the same way that they did in the Jerry Springer day, but those I believe those sorts of shows still are on television, daytime television in America. Maybe I'm wrong. But
yeah, I think Jerry Springer I mean, we didn't. I've never sat down and watched a single episode of Jerry Springer in full, but I can still give you the exact breakdown of an episode of Jerry Springer because it's just cultural. I think Jerry Springer is a big enough cultural icon that will bridge that and not age it accordingly.
Well, my question to that, and this is just me being, you know, this is literally me just playing devil's advocate. Could you argue we're from a generation of people that grew up while that was on television, though? And if you asked, generations below us, what Jerry Springer
maybe,
was,
but like you say,
would they be as familiar? I think these sorts of shows still exist today and that it still works. But to sort of counter,
yeah. Well, I think it's that. Like that is the counter. Like, you see, even if you don't know Jerry Springer, you see a crowd, you see a lower third with a title, you know, detailing a scenario, and you see a host with a card going, "We're bringing him on. It's a surprise." Like, even if you don't know the concept, I think it's all still clear enough.
Yeah, I guess the bit that's very specifically Jerry Springer, or iconically Jerry Springer, is that then it all just devolves immediately into fighting. That is kind of a joke at Jerry Springer's expense. I guess other than that, it works as a completely just on its own thing. But I feel like the whole it breaks down into them all having a fight with each other is more of a specific reference. But yeah, I would agree. My favorite, by the way, the ultimate gag on the whole Jerry Springer thing is from The West Wing. One will always be on The West Wing. I don't know if you recall.
Remind me.
It's Bartlett's sick, and I think Toby comes in to see President Bartlett, and he goes, "Toby, I watched some television today, And there were all these people, and they were arguing over the parentage of a child, and then they all fought right there on the television. Toby, tell me, these people don't vote, do they?
Nice. Very nice.
It's just brilliant. It's just so good. It's perfect Sorkin writing. Anyway, so yeah, I struggle with the debates around the use of actors with conditions that might lead to dwarfism in movies, and we talked about this recently. And I think the reason I struggle is I've heard amongst that community differing voices. And, you know, we talked on, I think, the Wizard of Oz episode about that discrepancy, and that certain actors have voiced opinions about the use of actors with these conditions in movies, and other actors have said, yeah, but if we stop doing that, then we don't get as much work in general as a community. And I've heard debates both ways, I feel like I've not heard a definitive debate either way that's made me go, okay, I absolutely 100% agree with either side. I am leaning towards it is icky the way that often, you know, oh, we've got a dream sequence, put someone short in there, because that's weird. They're weird. That stuff's bad. Really cleanly bad. But for something like this, where it's part of the plot in a more deliberate way, I don't know. I've got very mixed feelings on it. And I don't know how I feel. I think that's just me I've just got to be honest. I don't know where I land on whether that's appropriate or not. I just don't.
I don't think the intent here, I don't think the intent here is to cause offence to anyone.
No.
And I think often it is, you know, and I don't think either. Yeah, but then it comes down to what are the audience laughing at? So
right,
yeah,
and I guess that's the thing is actually, you know what? This is where I'm going to come down on this. I was not, because I felt that there was no malicious intent. I was not personally outraged or offended in the use of it in this movie. But I would be foolish not to acknowledge that there was probably harm done. There were, like with the whole Apu thing, while the intention of The Simpsons was not to create a stereotype that would then be yelled at people from that community on the street, you've got to imagine that people from that community, in this case, did have mini-me thrown at them as an insult, as a derogatory term. So harm was done, whether intended or not, I guess is probably where I actually will need to land if I'm being practical about it. So yeah, I guess that's a negative. I think that's a negative on the movie's stance, because regardless of how the movie handles the character, and I guess that was our error actually. I think the reason this conversation has been so difficult is we've tried to analyze whether the movie fucks up or not, but because of the way the character is used in the movie, there was definitely probably some harm done. And then how strong that is would be if you want, you would have to ask someone from that time period how they felt it affected their lives to get a better scale of how badly. But there's no way the answer is 0, right?
Well, we know from debates that have been had that the answer isn't 0, because I think people have spoken about it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, for sure. All
right, well there we go. So that we've landed on not great. Although it's lots to learn, lots to discuss. And if anyone felt that the discussion was frustrating or circular, or that we weren't really getting anywhere, I am sorry. I am still working out my feelings on it. So, and I wanted to make sure I talked it through. Let's talk about a few other quick elements before we move on to the triv and get out of here. What was the other thing I wanted to talk about? There was another big one. Oh yes, my actual the one that struck me really strongly when I was watching the movie, we still haven't covered of thing that because like I said at the beginning, there's one scene that I was like, no, and that's the very brief but moment of gay panic in the movie when they're winding up the guard and they kiss him on the cheek and he turns and smiles at Austin. It's the first time he's moved after several kisses from Felicity, and Austin initially smiles and nods like he's into it, and then he looks mortified at the premise. And yeah, I think it's pretty small, and it's only a tiny moment in the movie, but it does smack of that 90s gay panic stuff, and it's like, yeah, it didn't work then, doesn't work now. What's the joke? This is exactly like that thing of like, oh no, gay people are a danger to me.
It's also it's funny, isn't it? Because
they're going to try and do gay things to me because they want to.
One of the biggest ways things have changed, and I don't think it's the conversation always becomes woke, not woke, all of that bollocks. But actually, I think the interesting thing about this is, if Austin Powers was coming out today, it's not about whether it would be more or less woke. Actually, the character of Oscar, if you were doing a promiscuous 60s,
he'd have been into it.
Spy now,
yeah.
They would be into both genders. They would be free love man, and they would be it wouldn't matter whether it was he'd have, like you say, he'd have been really into the guard, like being like so yeah, I think that's funny.
Yeah, because that joke just plays out completely differently. Let's talk about let's see if I can actually pronounce it right for once, Chris. Let's give it a go. Wait, I've got to get it in front of me. I'm going to do this correct. Where is it? Frau Farbissina. Frau Farbissina. The whole Scott plotline in this movie, I mean, forgetting the fact that on a timeline basis it doesn't work, because if that is when he's conceived, in 69, that makes him in his 30s, I believe, in the present day. Not in his 20s as he's presented. So he's about 10 years out. But in terms of like, and I guess even they present him as early 20s, like he's almost presented like a teen, isn't he? But anyway, what do we think about the idea that Frau Farbissina is Scott's mother? We hinted at it in the previous movie. We outright confirm it.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I like that because I like the fact that it comes partly from Dr. Evil drinking Austin's mojo.
Yes.
Which is so grim as an idea, but okay, fine. I like the fact that it sort of was a bit of an arc for the last film and confirmed it and sort of tied a bow around that from the first movie. I liked it. I thought it all worked. I like the fact that Scott kind of, whilst he will clearly never get the affection of his father, he can potentially get the affections of his mother. I was a fan of all of that.
Yeah, me too. I think it works really well, and I like that it plays on something we hinted at in the previous movie as well. One thing we haven't talked about as well is Rob Lowe, his new role in this movie. Yeah, I was going to
say shout out to Rob Lowe as well. Great performance.
Yeah, it's brilliant because he is doing an impression of Robert Wagner, who plays original modern day number 2. But I really like the way that they do that. And also, I read that the reason... So apparently Rob Lowe could do a Robert Wagner impression well before this movie's production, because he apparently dated his daughter. So they knew each other already, and he'd already had an impression in his back pocket. It's a very funny notion to me.
Fair play.
I'm sure they're all, it sounds like everyone's... Whatever that was obviously... I'm not suggesting there was anything, unpleasant on set between the two. I'm saying simply that, they have a previous established relationship. It's clearly very friendly. And Rob Lowe got to do an impression, which is it's quite a good one.
I really need to relook at Rob Lowe's filmography, just sort of pinpoint when Rob Lowe became Rob Lowe, which was presumably The West Wing. But because I watched Planes, Trains and Automobiles for the first time recently, and he's just in that, in the beginning. And I assumed that character was going to become a running character throughout, because to me it's Rob Lowe. And a bit like Will Ferrell in the last Austin Powers movie, and I love that they bring that bit back again here in this one. Actually, by the way, side note, but he doesn't, and it's I guess Rob Lowe wasn't Rob Lowe then, and where this movie sits in Rob Lowe's career status at the time is
But I also
Yeah, I
love
wanna look it up.
I love the premise as well that like number two is just back without explanation. Like Doctor Evil killed him at the end of the last movie, and he's just back in this movie with a slight scar on his face, which is just which is actually kind of genius because we know that whole seat that dumps you into fire thing doesn't work very well because Will Ferrell's character was not successfully murdered in the previous movie. And then we bring Will Ferrell's character back in this one as well, Mustafa. We do the same thing, so it's genius. That all works really well.
Will Ferrell's makes more sense because
yes, they're in the past.
It's in the past, so it's before he died. But
but they essentially do the same thing where it's like, you know, he's the character's back. We're not really going to talk about it. We're not really going to cover it. We're just they're back. Like, have a scene with that character for fun.
Did you watch Did you get to the after credits?
I did.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, very funny. Although, fully enough, I left the room, went to the toilet, and heard it from the toilet, and had to go back, put it on. True story.
Had to go back and what? There's more.
Well, I had basically heard the scene play out, but I went back to make sure there wasn't any visual stuff I missed. Speaking of cameos, obviously, I say cameos, like just quite big actors playing small, brief roles. You know, well, there's a bunch that are just like, you know, good, fun actors that I like showing up in small roles, like, you know, David Koechner and Fred Willard and, you know, that sort of thing. But like, you know, Jeff Garlin is in this movie very briefly. Jennifer Coolidge appears in this movie. But also we have like Burt Bacharach back as himself. We have Elvis Costello, Woody Harrelson, Willie Nelson, Tim Robbins, obviously Jerry Springer. And then like the one that blew my mind, and then I had to look into it and realize what happened, is Rebecca Romijn, as in Mystique, is in this movie as herself. She's one of the models he's taking pictures of at the beginning, and he's like, "What's your name?" And she's like, "I'm Rebecca Romijn." I'm like, "Wait, what now?" And I realized it's because she was a model before she was an actress, and she's just been hired in this movie as that, I guess. It's basically it's her second film role. The other was, I don't believe, a speaking part. So it's her first speaking film role. The next thing she does is Mystique in X-Men, like a year later. Stunning.
I thought it was because I didn't know her name, but I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Mystique.
Yeah. What blew my mind though was that it was Mystique, and when he said, "What's your name?" she said Rebecca Romijn, which is the actress's name.
Right. Yeah.
And I was really confused,
Yeah, no,
so I had to look into it. At the time, she was known as a model, not as an actress, which is why she's in this playing a model. She is essentially playing herself. You know, famous model. They hired a famous model to be one of the models Austin is photographing. So yeah, I just credit to the casting department. I guess they pulled a bunch of cool, awesome names into the movie, and that's fun. And they were all really good in it too. Do I have any other notes? Yeah. I love that Frau hasn't de-aged. Absolutely stunning gag. Yeah. And the way they do it as well. You know, number 2 shows up. He's Rob Lowe now, and he's like, "Dr. Evil, welcome back to the 60s." And they were doing all that. And then we cut to, and even Dr. Evil's like, and Frau. Like, she looks the same, and even he's noticed. It's brilliant.
Well, I think it's because the joke is he compliments number 2 on how young number 2 looks.
Yes.
And then they're like, and Frau, oh, okay.
You're the same. Yeah. The same. Yeah. It's great. Yeah, it's just the right amount of noting it without making it too much of a point, in my opinion. So yeah, big fan of that. I wrote down the quote of, "I suggest you don't worry about this sort of thing and just enjoy yourself, Austin." And then he looks directly at the camera, and that goes for you too. It's just amazing. My favourite gag in the movie, Chris, though, the thing I laughed at the absolute most, was using Dr. Evil's henchwoman as a human shield over and over again in increasingly absurd ways. It's absolutely bananas, and I love every second of it.
Yeah, it's very good.
It's so good. Absolutely love it.
And then just what I like about that is they don't acknowledge it for ages until eventually he just goes, "Why won't you die?"
Yeah. If you listen to this podcast and going, you guys haven't really talked about anyone's like character arcs yet, which is like a big part of what you guys normally do. There's not much to say. There's really not much to say. The characters don't really grow or learn anything. Austin learns the mojo is inside him all along, I guess, but no one is really significantly different from where they start. And in terms of plot, Austin wants his mojo back. That's basically the plot. Hijinks ensue. It's enough. There's a time travel element that's kind of fun, but it's pretty thin on purpose so we can hang a bunch of jokes on it. So if you're wondering why I haven't really discussed that, there wasn't much to discuss, because we do normally spend a lot of time talking about that stuff. And instead, we got distracted by trying to figure out our feelings on the Mini-Me character.
Yep.
Do you have anything
Which
else?
I think, could have been predicted, that, to be fair.
Yeah, for sure. Let's do the
I
the
think
next thing.
it's, like I say, I think it is. I would rather watch this movie again than the first one. I think it is stronger. I think it's just a bit of a cleaner movie. Like I say, there's less being chucked at the wall. I think whilst the character arcs aren't wrapped up very well, there is more drive and urgency to the character of Austin because of the attempted character arc, which is better, I think, than the first film at least. And I think again, all the actors, Rob Lowe in particular, Vern Troyer, Vern Troyer, is brilliant, and Heather Graham is obviously spectacular, and I really like the decisions they made with her character in particular. So yeah, I do personally think it's a stronger film, but I think you could argue it either way. Like if some of all it would take is probably all the jokes to land for you in the first film, and you're probably preferring that film. So I don't think it's. I think it's one of the. I think this whole trilogy, I'll predict now, will be the most I'm not talking very well. I think it will be, of all the trilogies we've done, it will be the most debatable, and it'll be the thinnest margins between the films that you really could score it anyway. But for me personally, I think this is better than the first.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to the they gave Austin more of a drive, more stakes in this movie, because he's actually looking for something personal as well as just stop the bad guy, because it's less vague and ethereal, and more specific, his plan and his goals. Then we have something to be more invested in, plus the jokes are a higher hit rate, so it's like a slightly better plot, higher hit rate of jokes. Arguably you could say maybe some bigger issues. Chris didn't care for the some of the resolution of the final act. Thought it was a bit rushed. I felt strongly about one of the choices they made for Austin. I don't think the mojo thing was used to its full potential, although that criticism can be thrown at the first movie for the time travel thing not being used to its full potential. So that one sort of cancels itself out if we're comparing the two. So I guess this movie is better in the comedy and plot department, but then has two big flaws. So if you told me those big flaws were so big for you that they fully countered the fact that the movie has a better joke hit rate, I'd be totally understand where you're coming from. And on the casting as well, I should just quickly, let's quickly shout out Seth Green and Mindy Sterling, as well as Scott and Farbacina, and I got it right. And obviously Robert Wagner as number two. And good old. Oh God, Michael York, Basil Exposition. I don't even think we talked about him last week. Basil York, perfect in that sort of that role, that sort of weird mix of Q and whatever.
Yeah, he knows exactly what character he's playing and exactly what character he's spoofing. Yeah, it's great.
Perfect. All right, shall we do the thing, Chris?
Yep, let's triv it up.
I'll give you some trivia. So not much to report back on the development of the movie, because the first one was, as we pointed out last week, pretty good financial success. So that was just, do you want to make another one? Because if the answer is yes, we'll just do that. So they immediately started working on a script and started developing a sequel. Mike Myers this will be news to many of you. Mike Myers originally wanted to play 4 characters in this movie. He actually sort of developed the Love Guru character to be a part of this film in the very earliest stages. But in the end, cleaned the script up over, as he was writing, simplified, and the Love Guru character fell out of it, and I guess got back pocketed for a future use. We've already talked about the Liz Hurley situation. So once she was out and they knew they had to replace, the first person they actually considered was Catherine Zeta-Jones, who would have been very good in that role, I think, but I'm glad we got Heather Graham.
I think Catherine Zeta-Jones would have potentially would have been too similar to Elizabeth Hurley, personally.
There's definitely
that's unfair.
I mean, there's definitely a world where that's a problem. You're right. I agree. So Heather Graham was then asked to audition at Mike Myers' request. She has spoken about, and there's debate about the timeline of this, because she did get other roles around this time, but she has talked about how this movie was a major part of saving her from a career in porn. She had a call from she had a call from her agent and was considering accepting a major part in a softcore porn movie because they hadn't had any meaningful film roles in like a year and a half. And she was on the verge of agreeing to do that when the request to audition for this movie came in. And apparently the first thing she did after being paid for this movie was she bought a copy of the film she almost did, the softcore porn, and still has it to this day. And I think that's super interesting. I know that I read some comments about like the timeline of this, because she also in the same year. What other movie came out? She did another movie in the same year as this. I can't. Well, was it Bowfinger? Yes, she was in Bowfinger with Steve Martin and Eddie Murphy. But it looks like she did shoot Austin Powers first, so I think that does track, in my opinion. She had a big year in 1999. Bowfinger and Austin Powers sort of established herself as like a comedy actress, and then continued to work following that. Jay Roach, who directed this movie, enjoyed working with her so much he actually originally wanted her to be in Meet the Parents, as Ben Stiller's fiance or hopeful fiance, before that role went to someone else. So yeah, that was a consideration. It is weird to think that these movies were directed by the same guy as Meet the Parents. That doesn't feel right, does it?
No. What do we know? What else? Or have we inadvertently done like other movies in his career? Like, have we?
No, I don't think so. Obviously he did have a big movie out this year. Was it The Roses?
Oh yeah.
That was his. Let's look. Jay Roach, American filmmaker. So yeah, he's mostly known for Austin Powers franchise, Meet the Parents, and The Roses. That's what's immediately come up. But he also did a movie called Bombshell, which I've never heard of. Oh, he did The Campaign.
That does mean by the end of this, we'll have reviewed 4 of his movies on here.
Yeah, true. Absolutely true. Oh, apparently, did he direct... did he direct The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? And 51st Dates? Surely not. Am I getting confused here, or is he just a producer on these? Sometimes Google gets confused, doesn't it? And if someone's produced...
hold on, because I had the Wikipedia up. He's not listed. He's a producer. He was a producer on 51st Dates, according to Wikipedia.
Same on Galaxy. Okay. Directed by Garth Jennings. Okay, so he's clearly been a big time producer. There's tons of movies in his like filmography here that's like connected to him. So he's clearly, done a ton of like producing work as well. So yeah, there are a lot of big films in his listed on his IMDb page. So I don't think we can be. And I definitely don't think we can be disparaging about the career, because my God.
Oh no, I'm not being disparaging at all. No, not at all.
No, I wasn't suggesting you were being. I just meant in general. Like I don't, it sounds like maybe we are big, but like no, he's clearly worked on a lot of really good stuff. So,
is there a director we've done? I'm trying to think. I suppose David Yates, because did he do Fantastic Beasts as well as would David Yates by default probably be the director we've done the most of?
Almost certainly, right? Yeah.
Has to
But
be.
what other
It's not like we've
trilogies
done
have
a
we
lot.
done though? Because we've done other trilogies, so like there's got to be another.
Well, there's X-Men, but I'm really hoping it's not.
Oh, George Lucas, because we did the Star Wars movies and the prequel trilogy.
Oh yeah, so the six Star Wars.
He didn't
movies
direct
by
all
George
those Star
Lucas.
Wars movie though, did he? He didn't do Empire Strikes Back or Return.
So he's only on 4. So he's probably David Yates is probably still above Lucas, then, isn't he?
Yeah, I'd have to have a look. I did say for the next, like, when we hit the next big milestone, the 200, we'll do another by the numbers episode. But instead of doing like box office and stuff, I do like the idea of being like, which actor have we seen the most movies of? Which director have we seen the most movies of? That could be some fun stuff to sort of get some stats on.
It's a hard. So I've just double checked. It's a hard one to beat. There's 7 David Yates films.
Yeah. There you go. Well, we'll see. Someone might top him, but it's crazy. It is funny to think that we've ended up watching 4 J. Roach films. That just seems...
Totally.
That definitely seems like an unlikely thing. And also all within a year. Within a 12-month period, we've done 4 J. Roach movies. So yeah. He looks like he's a producer on Sisters as well. That was a fun movie. I enjoyed that one. Anyway, let's move on trivia-wise. Where was I at? Oh yeah. So despite what some sources have reported, go on.
Sorry, just on that, like almost the last one. I found someone very surprising who we've done 4 of.
Go on.
Gore
Verbinski. Gore Verbinski. Well, that's not surprising. He did all the Pirates movies.
No, that's why it's not surprising. There's one Pirates movie he didn't do. So he didn't do the 4th Pirates movie. The reason we've seen 4 of his movies is because he did Mouse Hunt.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Anyway, sorry.
Yes.
Carry on.
Gore Verbinski makes a bunch of sense. I did say if there was another answer, it would be hidden in one of the trilogies, so that makes perfect sense to me.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
So sources reported at the time, and it's been an apocryphal tale since, that it took 7 hours for Mike Myers to get into the fat bastard makeup. This is not true. It only took 2.5 hours for the sort of clothed version of the costume, and 4 hours for the nude version. So yeah, which is still a long time. Yeah, a lot of work. So yeah. Basil's remark about the audience ignoring the mechanics of the time travel apparently was unscripted. It's something they sort of came up with on the day between the two of them. I thought it would be funny, so that's what happened. I don't know if it was a full
it's a good joke.
I don't know if it's a full ad lib, or if he suggested maybe, because I feel like Michael. Okay, I could be wrong. This is pure speculation. Michael York feels like a very classically respectful actor to me, where he'd have an idea and instead of just improving it, he'd before the scene have a chat with the director and be like, "I've had this idea. Do you mind if I run it by you?" That's my feeling. That's why I think it's maybe not listed as an ad lib as such. I feel like he wouldn't want to surprise his co-performer in the scene or anything like that. So that's my feeling on maybe how that played out. And then I guess they developed it together and then it ended up in the scene. But it definitely wasn't in the script, so that's fun. After completing the initial production, they did a test screening, and the rocket sequence, where we linked all those different scenes with various words and words that covered testicles and Johnsons and dicks and all the different things we did there. That scene tested so well, they then went back and filmed more. There are more in the movie than were originally shot because it played so well for the test audience. So that's quite.
I think it's good. I think it's a very well written sequence and joke. I liked it a lot.
In the original script, the title was Austin Powers 2: The Wrath of Khan, and apparently then there'd be
That's fucking brilliant.
Apparently, the movie opened then with a narrator who then said that due to a lawsuit, they've got to retitle the movie. So then the movie would be retitled in front of the audience to Austin Pussy. And then the narrator would proceed to say that, unfortunately, we want a PG-13, so now we have to change it again. And then the title, The Spy Who Shagged Me, would be displayed. So yeah, that was the original joke, but they took it out and just left the movie as The Spy Who Shagged Me, which is fun. We're going to talk more about that title in a minute then. During the Elvis Costello scene, Austin says to Felicity, "You're quite good on your feet," and she responds, "I'm even better off my feet." Apparently the original line was, "I'm even better on my back," but that was deemed inappropriate, so they changed it. I think that's the same joke. I don't know why you changed that.
I agree, and I did think that was when she started talking, I in my head filled in the blank with that.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, she's gonna say I better on my back, and then it was a different take, but that makes sense why it was a different take.
Yeah. They tried to dull it down as in terms of its potential offence. You might recall the brilliant joke in the middle of the movie where Austin points out how the English countryside looks nothing like Southern California. It will not surprise you to discover that's because the entire movie was indeed filmed in Southern California, and this scene was a bit more of a spur-of-the-moment thing, and the dialogue was improvised, which is why Felicity replies, "What?" when Austin asks her that question, because she didn't know he was going to say that. So yeah, it's a good gag.
I like that joke. Yeah, I like that joke a lot.
Yeah, it's good. One of my favourite things about this movie is discovering an early trailer for it that opens with the narration, "If you only see one movie this summer, see Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. But if you see 2 movies, see Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me." It's just a good gag.
That's a very good gag.
Yeah. The head-to-toe makeup for Fat Bastard was designed and created at the Stan Winston Studios under the supervision of key artist Mike Smithson, and would go on to earn Smithson and Michelle Burke, an Academy Award nomination for Best Makeup. It's the only Academy Award nomination this franchise ever received. And it obviously it did not win, otherwise I'd be saying it was an Academy Award winner. It got the nomination. I think that's a good one though. Why not? I'm surprised that they I don't know if they did it at the time or maybe they didn't, but I'm surprised Beautiful Stranger didn't get, as a film song. Well, I wonder if they were still doing those awards.
It is a bop, undeniably.
I love that song. I do love that song. I listened to it a few times yesterday. And I was humming it for a lot today. So there we go, 72nd Academy Awards. Let me just quickly see. American Beauty won that year. Let's see. Best Makeup, there it is. Okay, so that's there. Let me see, music. Song? I think they just didn't have that award at the time. Oh no, Best Original Song. It's not even nominated, Chris. Oh, I can kind of see why, though. Okay, fair enough. I've just looked at the list.
What are the others?
I mean, the winner, and it's one of my favourite pieces of movie music of all time, which is "You'll Be in My Heart" from Tarzan by Phil Collins. Absolute fucking... I mean, the Tarzan soundtrack... My God, that's an amazing one. Blame Canada from South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, which is just, yeah, absolutely. Save Me from Magnolia, and When She Loved Me from Toy Story 2. So, yeah, okay, fair enough. fair enough. That's a pretty good.
Yeah, those are some absolute belters.
Yeah. Some iconic stuff in there.
And I just think it's a comedy. People, those awards aren't looking to those type of films, unfortunately.
No, sadly not. No, they should be, but they don't. So, for those who don't know, the word shag is not as offensive in the rest of the world as it is in the UK, or in many countries actually. In the US, really don't think it's an offensive word at all, but in the UK, and offensive is the wrong word, I think, but like a sexually charged word. So, in many countries, this was a difficult title to translate, and I've got a few examples of what different countries did with it, if you'd like to hear, Chris. There's some good ones.
I'd love to hear. Yeah.
The German title translates to The Spy in the Secret Missionary Position. It's pretty good. In Croatia...
That's amazing.
In Croatia, they went with The Spy Who Groped Me.
That's good. Good translation. Yeah, makes sense.
Brazil went with The Spy Who's Good in Bed. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Logical, yeah.
Singapore went with The Spy Who Treated Me Nicely. And Malaysia went a similar direction and went with Austin Powers, The Spy Who Behaved Very Nicely Around Me. China, the most conservative of these countries, went with Austin Powers, The Spy Who Liked Me a Lot. But my favourite thing, Chris, is not all countries went less raunchy. Some countries made it dirtier. The Norwegian title for this movie, Chris, and I will butcher this, Spoinum som spermet meg, is a dirtier way of essentially saying The Spy Who Ejaculated on Me.
Oh wow, that is a different end of the spectrum to The Spy Who Treated Me Nicely, isn't it?
Yeah. That's good. I enjoy that. I enjoy that movie had different titles. Titles are a problem for this movie for obvious reasons, but there you go. Now, this movie has an interesting history with South Korea, the country I currently reside, because Austin Powers International Man of Mystery did not get released in South Korea. South Korea, at the time, had bans on certain cultural imports. They still actually technically do, although those rules have loosened over the years. Every piece of media I watch in this country has a special code assigned to it to say it's government approved. So they are still technically signing off on things being released here. They're just not actually really like censoring anymore in terms of like denying stuff. And there's a whole article about censorship of material in Korea over the years and how that's shifted, particularly with content from Japan for obvious reasons. So anyway, the movie didn't come out in South Korea, International Man of Mystery, but it was available through illegal means. It spread on an illegal videotape that was shared throughout the country called Incongruable 007. But they were concerned because they wanted to release the second one in Korea, in South Korea, and knew that the audiences mostly had not had access to the first movie. So they did something kind of genius, in my opinion. The Korean distributor attached Madonna's music video for Beautiful Stranger to the front of the theatrical print and had on-screen subtitles throughout the music video summarizing the plot of International Man of Mystery. The movie was a big hit. So a year later, they then released International Man of Mystery, but under its new title, Austin Powers Zero. As in, it's a prequel.
So the Spy Who Shagged Me was what was on screen, but the plot details were for International Man of Mystery.
No. So what they did was they put at the beginning of the movie. So Spy Who Shagged Me would play in its full, translated form, but they were worried people wouldn't understand it. So they played at the beginning Madonna's music video for Beautiful Stranger,
right, okay, yeah.
And there was text underneath that would, while the music video was playing, that caught you up on the events of the previous movie first, and then they played Spy Who Shagged Me, which is a genius solution, in my opinion.
Isn't it? Because well, it is, but I sort of think, I don't want to accuse the first movie of being quite thin, but I sort of feel like the Star Wars spoof crawl kind of gives you all the information you need as well.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. And what I love extra about that is because the movie was then a bit of a hit, they then wanted to release International Man of Mystery, and they did that the next year. They titled it Austin Powers Zero. It's made it sort of like a prequel. So I did not expect to see trivia about South Korea in this podcast, but there you go. So the fifth sequel in history. Oh no, I've skipped. Sorry. This movie earned $54.9 million in its opening weekend, Chris. $53.8 million was the entire domestic run of the original. This is the
fair play to this movie.
This is the fifth sequel in history to gross over $200 million domestically, so just in the States, following Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, Terminator 2 and The Lost World Jurassic Park. So this is the 5th after those 3, the 2 Star Wars sequels, Terminator 2 and Lost World. In the end, on a $33 million budget, which is double what they spent on the last movie, but still very small budget, this movie made $313 million. And that is before DVD and video and everything that came after. What an absolute smash hit this was. My God.
Yeah.
So yeah, huge hit.
That's amazing.
Just massive. Cultural phenomenon. Many years after this, people doing bad Austin Powers impressions. Lots of Halloween costumes. Just cultural icon for a bit. Probably would struggle to make Austin Powers impressions work now, I'd say.
I don't know, if someone were to say something though and you were to go groovy baby, they would get it. They would know what you were doing.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I think probably. Yeah. It's time, Chris, for Cars Exist.
Meow.
So, as we all know, Felicity's car is a 66 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray, the C2 model. Very good. And the Time Machine car that takes Austin back is a Volkswagen New Beetle convertible pre-production TYP1Y. Because of course it is.
Of course, yeah. You know that, I know that. We all know that.
Yeah. Guns exist. Pew pew. I did a different noise this week, so you'd hear it.
I liked it. Thank you.
No. So Felicity's revolver. We already talked about Austin's gun last week. Same gun for Austin this week. It's 007's old gun, but with a new grip. Felicity's revolver is a nickel-plated Smith & Wesson Model 19 with pearl grips. I am under the impression that is a famous American brand of gun. Obviously, she's an American character. Makes perfect sense. And that, Chris, is the Triv. We did it.
Boom.
So, yeah. We're doing 3 next week. It's going to be good, I reckon. I hope. Oh man, if they can just maintain this, and it not fall off a cliff, I'll be pretty content. I'll be pretty happy.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I will. I completely agree, and I'm looking forward to it. I think we're just under, Dan. Shall I take us home?
Take us home. Let's do it.
We'll see you next week. Thank you for your support. My name's Chris Billingham.
My name's Dan Doolan.
And this review has been rewound.